some states, including Illinois, according to NASA account. It didn't happen on the 4th. These people were all put to sleep on the 6th. How can it happen on the 4th? Alright, the next one's kind of interesting. It's a different perspective. This is Drunvalo, our history in the 1972 Syrian experiment. I mean, if you looked at my vlog, I've got alien heads where more than one. I have my uncle's research at Project Blue Book, which produced one piece of paper. 80 different types of UFOs that come to this planet doing a little bit more on it. Most people don't know that on August 7th, 1972, the greatest solar flare in the history of the planet occurred. This is an abstract, some unusual features of the cosmic ray storm in August of 1972. Now you gotta realize, I'm the only one that knows this. On August 6, 1972, all life on planet was put to sleep, and they were not woken up until August 13th, 1972. All this is documented, but if you notice, every time it's talked about this large solar flare, the date, the time, it keeps changing. You're looking at August 4th to August 7th. They're giving all different types, what time it happened, what day it happened, 6:30 UT, 8 hours after. Alright. Here's another abstract. They're given the 1500. This is the common one, and it just keeps changing all the time. They're saying a giant shock wave from this hit the Earth. Let's hit the PDF real fast. And then the major events during the 2nd to the 8th of August. Well, I know for a fact that it happened on August 7th because I remember August 6th being told that the whole planet was being put to sleep. On August 7th, after the event happened, Eastern Standard Time around 3 o'clock in the morning, I went to sleep. I woke up the following day. I observed all the light, the casting of the shadows. The telephone pole that was in front of my house had different lengths of shadows.
Information that's linked to our mission, the galactic mission from the Syrians. I am a master soul from Sirius. My IC is directly on it. And so, and I have some Orion and Arcturus, okay? So, and if you look at my chart, it's kind of evident I'm here for like one thing. And a lot of us have these charts and these starseed locations, right? And we're all waking up at the beginning of this shift. And so the question is, for a lot of us, how the heck did this all start? Because we're still remembering. We have remembrance of, especially now on a dimensional level, a lot of us are getting pulled to Egypt. We're getting pulled to different dimensions. And so this is a little information of how this whole project got started, and the experiment that started in Egypt, and how successful it was, which is why everything's changing right meow. Okay, so we're going to go back to Thoth and the other ascended masters. Remember, all the ascended masters are here incarnate right now. Same with the pharaohs. So going back to Thoth and the other ascended masters, when we started creating the Christ consciousness grid. The Christ consciousness, remember, as above, so below. So when we talk about this, not just think of it as planets and objects, but think of it as blood and inside the body, right? Because that's how we're connected through our soul spark, or the energy inside of us, to this consciousness grid. Because in Egypt, we had gotten to the point where we could we understood sound. We everything had a resonance to it. It was all the Arcturus. When we had started mixing the bloodlines in Atlantis, when our karma started catching up with us in that root race time, and so we were plummeting backwards. And in 1972, so we were plummeting backwards. And, when we started working on the Christ consciousness grid galactically, really nobody really paid that much attention to it. It wasn't because it was normal to synthetically create Christ consciousness grids to ascend planets up and down dimensions. It was a normal thing. But 200 years ago is when the Syrians, there is no time. So, they just saw into the future that they didn't see how we were going to make that dimensional shift. And if we didn't make that dimensional shift in our bodies and as humanity, then the planet wasn't going to make it. So they started working, trying to figure out how to raise the level of awareness. And eventually they found some help in another galaxy. So this is when the Syrians, not only had the tools and the software, energy in our bodies, the Syrians had the technology to help us reincarnate our stronger souls into a denser vessel. And then through incarnation cycles, what we were doing was evolving the planet and seeding the earth, okay? And especially in this lifetime, for those of us who are watching this right now and, for the next couple of years, those of us who are on the ascension path right now. So if they didn't do anything, then we weren't going to make it. Now, if we would have been conscious, then it would have just been an amazing shift, right? It would have been a big trip. But because we weren't conscious, then we would have blown up. Through the galaxies and through intent, this is how we've been getting this extra energy boosts, especially for us starseeds here that are activating our templates. And now, since we've completely connected the OA and our plasma is connected and we're in the collective consciousness, which is what we started, that is the Christ consciousness grid. And it's actually been here since 1980, but we had to be conscious, okay, to connect to it. So it was the biggest thing that ever happened, okay? And this comes from Anthony R. Curtis in the Space Almanac. He called it the most intense solar storm ever recorded. According to Science News, the early days of August saw a severe disturbance on the sun that produced 4 major flares between August 2nd and August 7th. The ones recorded in early August were among the most major ever recorded. The August 7th flare ran the X-ray sensors off the scale. The solar wind, which has an average velocity of 500 kilometers per second or 1,000,000 miles per hour. So the Earth normally spins at 1,000,000 miles. The solar wind, not spins, but the solar wind was 1,000,000 miles per hour normally, okay? The August 7th flare, it got up to 2.5 million miles an hour. Okay, so it went from 1,000,000. The solar flare came in, sped up to 2.5 million, and this is where the numerology gets interesting, for 3 days, and then drops down to 1.5 million miles an hour for exactly 30 days. And it was considered impossible. And then it just dropped back down to normal, okay? Accounts of the event were published in all the major scientific literature of the world and many of the major newspapers, but scientists didn't know what it meant. All they did was publish the data. And after 6 months, Suzuki called a worldwide scientific meeting to discuss the implications of the explosion. John Valley left him about 3 months before. He doesn't know what happened at the gathering. What he does know in the previous meeting, that is, From August to November 1972, there was a great amount of information published and written about this. But after the meeting in June or July of 1973, there was a total worldwide blackout, just as if the great event had never happened. So I don't want to make this too long, this video, because this is important stuff. So I want to now just talk about, this solar flare. We'll talk about the races that came in, and then we'll stop. If the Syrians hadn't intervened, it would have killed everything on the planet, right down to the level of microbes and algae. We needed a rescue team to come wake us up. The Syrians not only had the hardware, this is what we just talked about, they had, the galactic ambassadors to intervene. There was a galactic council. The only many meetings, the only reason we were able to intercede was because it would have been total devastation. Nothing would have lived. The possibility of one person or human surviving or anything on the planet, then we would have not been given permission to even come and ascend into this lower density as starseeds to help ascend the planet at this time. After receiving permission, the Syrians immediately went to work and within 30 days had everything in place. The only many meetings, the only reason we were able to intercede was because it would have been total devastation. Nothing. After 440, okay, they launched the large cigar-shaped object just outside the membrane of consciousness of the Earth, the membrane, the plasma membrane, at 440,000 miles out, and they placed an overtone higher so it was invisible to us. They placed the 8 flying saucer-type ships on the apexes of the 8 tetrahedron points. That is the 8 points of the star tetrahedron around the Earth. There is a star tetrahedron inscribed around the Earth. This is also a much bigger one, around 10,000 miles above the surface. The points are the chakra system of the planet. Again, as above, so below. So everything outside of us, we also is connected to the planet. And again, there were a set of one-dimensional overtones higher than the Earth.
This rare footage of a meteorite in flight was taken quite by chance in Alberta in 1972. We'll show it to you twice since it's quite short. The meteorite only broke up a little and seemed to have skipped through the atmosphere and returned to space, which was...
As viewed from Central Park, New York, this is Racy's crew, Gluebach, Prussia.
Roll 1.
Roll 1.
Say that you will have to see an eclipse on the...
Do not look at the sun. What happens, of course, is this.
Normally, you try to look at the sun, your eyes just resist it. They close up.
It's 2017, the day of the total solar eclipse. I am in Madras, Oregon. The skies are clear.
You guys look at almost done. Almost done. Sunset. Almost gone. Wait for the diamond ring. Wait for the diamond ring. It's almost there. Holy cow. It's almost done. When the stop. Look at the sunset. Okay, there's the diamond ring. Ryan, check it now. Ryan, look. Not yet. Keep your glasses on. Keep your glasses on, you guys. Diamond ring. Oh!
First, 2017, will another eclipse be visible from North America?
Number one, most of you are going to see a very large penumbra. That's a partial shadow where you still see a portion of the sun, but a select few of you are going to get to see the umbra. And that's nature's big event. That's where the moon completely blocks out the sun. It's called totality, and the area where it hits on the earth is known as the path of totality. And on Monday, it goes from Oregon to South Carolina. The clock ticking down.
Storm has ignited a slew of 40,000 lightning strikes in southwestern California. These strikes have hit Los Angeles, Santa Barbara, St. Louis, and other counties, all between September 10th and 11th. The electric storm was most active on Sunday when an amazing 5,000 lightning bolts in the area over a 3-hour period. The National Weather Service in Los Angeles took to Twitter to report the tremendous display. The intense storm brought plenty of lightning to the Golden State's southern region, but all
When it's humid, and I'm like, that's weird, it's not humid
Earlier
outside.
at the same spot?
Yes.
But when it was light?
When it was light, when we went to the market.
Oh, so you noticed it looked kind of strange.
I commented on it.
You did, huh?
What a trip.
Dude, that's like a horror movie of aliens, it really is.
I've never seen lightning like that in my life.
Why would it only be in clouds?
Yeah,
There's no
it's
thunder.
Only that area, though.
That's super freaking weird.
Strange, huh?
That's weird.
It is weird.
Quantum mechanics, then presumably they are an inherent part of the universe. Or are they merely a mathematical construct?
But of course, hard to ignore what's happening with Irma. I mean, this is now historic in terms of how strong it is. 185 mile per hour winds. We've only had 80, so this storm is historic, and it is actually maintaining those 185 mile per hour winds this morning. You can see the center right now, the eye, going through the Leeward Islands. Next stop here is the U.S. and British Virgin. It's typically the peak of the hurricane season, and that is what we're seeing. Good news with Jose, though, even though it does strengthen into a hurricane, it's going to stay out in the Atlantic. Neither one of those two storms appear to be a threat for the U.S. That is not the case in Republic and Haiti, and then it will weaken a little bit. But moving through the Turks and Caicos in the southeast Bahamas is a Category 4 hurricane, going to do a lot of damage. And then look at this now, a decided shift with the track of this here that has just come in with the 5 o'clock advisory from the. Look at this now, a decided shift with the track of this here.
Hurricane Maria just came ashore in Puerto Rico.
The winds are ferocious right now. We are back here on the northern side of San Juan here.
The island is destroyed. 150-mile-an-hour winds ripping buildings apart.
And now they're dealing with this. Flooding.
People ordered to stay inside until at least tomorrow.
Hospitals damaged, running on generator power. Emergency management now confirms 100% of Puerto Rico now without power.
People are still being rescued. A British military helicopter pulled 3 people to safety from.
While they chanted, Arriba! And they marched.
Arriba, Puerto Rico!
And by the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, as they all did.
Expedited the governor's major disaster declaration request and approved that. We've been in the state for over 48 hours ready to support our state and local partners, and with that disaster declaration. We're moving very quickly. The president has been in great communication, not only with me, but everything he can to take care of people, and that's what we're doing. We're positioning as many teams and commodities in place. It's not moving as fast as anyone would like, including
you just spelled out how people from Haiti, I'm glad we helped them, who are not U.S. citizens, didn't have red tape to get through to get the help. So I don't really care what the federal regulation is. We got help to Haiti faster than we got help to Puerto Rico.
Recovery will be a long and difficult road, and the federal government stands ready, willing and able to support that effort.
It's going to be a very expensive situation. We want to take care of the people of Texas.
Well, we love the people of Florida.
I just want to tell you, we are there for you 100%.
I just want to tell you, we are there for you 100%. In Texas and in Florida, we get an A+, and I'll tell you what, I think we've done just as good in Puerto Rico.
Are desperate for basic supplies, food, water, and fuel, but a nearly century-old shipping law is making it harder for foreign ships to help deliver that aid. So why hasn't the government issued a waiver for the so-called Jones Act, as it did to help Florida and Texas recover from hurricanes? Well, here's what the president said today.
We have a lot of shippers and a lot of people and a lot of people that work in the shipping industry that don't want the Jones Act lifted.
What about with federal aid distribution? Can Puerto Rico be treated differently?
Las Vegas shooting investigation, the coroner just releasing its official determination that the shooter, Stephen Craig Paddock, killed himself by shooting himself in the head. Since the October 1st concert massacre in Las Vegas, the FBI has interviewed more than 400 people worldwide, but only the investigators know if we're any closer to figuring out the gunman's motive. Special Agent in Charge Aaron Rouse
in our West Coast newsroom with the details of this report. Jonathan?
Good evening, Harris. For those who lost loved ones or who survived that terrible traumatic night, it is a disappointing end to a 10-month investigation that has left us no closer to uncovering a motivation for the massacre. Paddock opened fire, as you said, from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, killing 58 people attending that concert. He had spent several days bringing in an arsenal of weapons.
We refused to believe it was a shooting until it just kept going and going. And then Chase and Aldine left the stage, and then everybody started fleeing. And we started fleeing. We had to hop the gate to get out.
Of the events leading up to 1 October, as well as motive. What we have been able to answer are the questions of who, what, when, where, and how. What we have not been able to definitively answer is the why Stephen Paddock was an unremarkable man, whose movements leading up to October 1st didn't raise any suspicion. An interview with his doctor indicated signs of a troubled mind, but no troubling behavior that would trigger a call to law enforcement. Without a manifesto or even a note to answer questions, the totality of the information that has been gathered leaves us to only make an educated guess as to the motives of Stephen Paddock.
Revive him. And they're crying, they're panicking, the people are screaming, they're behind a wall. The girls now are freaking out. Now one of them is starting to, she wants to call her dad and she doesn't want to run anymore, and it's time, we're running. And I just said to anyone who was behind me, run to the dark. And it's the darkest side over there where all that blackness is, and just run, not knowing that it's still just in clear sight.